Innovation in this regard is a kind of a salt curve. Have you ever heard of a salt curve before? This is the idea that if you have not enough salt in your diet, you will die because you can't regulate your blood pressure. But if you have too much salt in your diet, you'll die because your blood pressure will only be high. So there's a kind of sweet spot right in the middle. And the sweet spot means that you need to have not too much innovation and but still have enough innovation. So we took PillSec's definition, this first useful and successful, and we actually turned these quantities into a thing that you could score out of 10. And we're going to do a couple of examples with this in a minute so that you can see how to score them. But it's kind of strange to think that first could be a score out of 10. Either you are first or you are not, right? Well, it turns out that we think about first as the largest group of people in the world that have never experienced your innovation before. So if it's the whole world, if it's a world first, that's a 10 out of 10. But if it's been done in another country, or if it's been done in your country in another industry, the first time you do it in your industry, that's still an 8 out of 10. And maybe your competitors in your industry are already doing it, but the first time that you do it in your firm, that's a 6 out of 10. And if it's already happening in some parts of your firm and your team gets onto it, then it's a 4 out of 10. And maybe you're the last person in your company to experience the innovation. Well, in that case, then it's a 2 out of 10 because it's just you. So in this case, first doesn't have to be an all or nothing quantity. First can actually be a score. Similarly, when you think about how customers think how useful an innovation is, they start by just saying, well, do I understand it? If I understand an innovation, then that's a 2 out of 10. If I understand it and it's easy or simple, that's a 4 out of 10. But a pass for an innovation, a 5 out of 10 or better, or 6 out of 10, is that I have to understand it, it has to be simple or easy, and it has to be somehow better. Now, even if that's the case, I might not necessarily adopt the innovation. It has to fit with my world. And even then, I might be worried about the fact that because it's new, it's not going to work. So then what I'd love to do is I'd love to be able to try it and then go backwards. So right now, I would love to have a Tesla Model S. I would love that to be the car that I drive. I don't drive that car. I drive a Toyota RAV4. Now, even though I think that the Tesla Model S, I understand how to drive it. It's really simple. I understand how the electricity works. I don't need to know anything else about how to drive the car. And I think it's better for both the environment and my running costs to have an electric car. And they accelerate amazingly. They're very exciting cars. I don't have one because it doesn't fit in my world. Because I don't need another car right now. I might get one when I change this car for a new one, but right now the car I have works perfectly well and it doesn't make sense to switch. So it doesn't fit for me. It's only a 6. But even if it did fit, what would be much better is to try it out in case it doesn't work. What if I find out that it doesn't go far enough before I have to recharge it, or recharging takes too long, or somehow the battery doesn't last? I'd like to be able to try it before I buy it somehow, and that's this stage thing. Now, all of those things about how first the Tesla Model S is and how useful it is doesn't help Tesla sell cars. They're interested in selling cars. And really, this success thing comes down to the fact that before a company does an innovation, they actually have to make an investment in advance that's risky to decide that they want to do it. Now, how that innovation succeeds in terms of investment is this last kind of column. It might succeed a little bit, which is a 2 out of 10. It might do everything that they hoped that it was going to do and promised in their capital application procedure. That would be full success. But you'd know this yourself. If you're going to ask your company for money to do an innovation, you're probably going to under-promise and then hopefully over-deliver later. And that's because you expect that your innovation, or you hope that your innovation will do better than you promised. And so that level that you hope, that's the overkill level. That's a 6 out of 10. Now, if the innovation works one time, that's a 6. If it works every time, that's an 8. And if you can use it to solve a different problem as well from the one you started, that's a 10. When you've got these scores, you multiply them all together and you get a score out of 1,000. And that tells you something about how innovative something is. The third example that I want to share with you, which is kind of cool, is this thing called an Impossible Burger. And an Impossible Burger is actually a vegetarian, it's actually vegetarian meat. Now, when I say it's vegetarian meat, it's not soy protein that acts as a substitute meat. The researchers have gone and taken plant material, and in particular a material called heme, and they've actually built artificial vegetable meat that tastes like meat, feels like meat, smells like meat, cooks like meat, sizzles like meat. This is, to all intensive purposes, it's very hard to separate this from a real beef hamburger. right? And this is absolutely a world first. And it's amazing. I tried one of these on the plane back when we were flying before COVID, on an Air New Zealand flight. And they had these Impossible Burgers, and I got to try one. And I have to tell you, it was pretty good. Right? It was hard to tell that it was a vegetarian burger. If they hadn't told me, I probably wouldn't have known. And then the last thing's interesting is that this idea has worked successfully before. The interesting thing, though, when you have a look at this is it's an 800 innovation score. Okay, that's a really, really high score. And frankly, this is a quite scary thing, because if you think about why people want to be vegetarians, there are some things about health reasons to be vegetarians. There are some things about moral issues to be vegetarians. I have some vegetarian friends that like to be vegetarian, partly because they get to be superior to me because they're vegetarian. Not any of those needs are potentially met with the Impossible Burger. Because it's made from heme, it's not necessarily healthier for you. Because of the amount of energy and everything that goes into making it, it's not necessarily better for the environment. And if you're going to try and be morally superior by not eating meat, you're kind of shooting yourself a little bit in the foot. And so it's almost too innovative to be successful in some regard. Now, time will tell if it does succeed. But right now, this thing hasn't taken off like the owners would like it to, even though it's kind of worked in a couple of places. So we would call this a transformational innovation.